The massive election fraud perpetrated by the Democrats, it's terrible. It should be rectified. But it ain't going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, because in the end, it falls to the compromised and corrupt federal judges and state judges that are going to cover for the establishment and for the status quo. The president can file all lawsuits that he wants, but mark my words, you may not like to hear this. Some people have reacted because it's become now a new scandal industry with regard to this voter fraud. People are trying to profiteer by it. They're trying to offer false hope. Some are out there saying that there's a software called the Hammer. Well, let me tell you about the Hammer. I don't know specifically about it because it was classified at the time, but it's over 30 years old. There's more technology on your cell phone. These are people who are trying to profit by it to become relevant again. There are a lot of bottom feeders out there who don't have anything to do or anything to say and need to jingle a little change by giving people false information. And that's the problem here, because the hard truth is that there's no judge in this country, not even the U.S. Supreme Court, which are a bunch of political hacks by and large, are going to overturn what happened. Now, yes, it's worth trying. It's worth to find out what went on, if you can. But when have we ever found out truly what went on? Look at what our worthless blowhard Attorney General Bill Barr, who should be fired by now, but he's not. President still has a month and a half in office or so. But what did he do with regard to Comey, Clapper, Brennan, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Bidens, the whole rest of them? What has he done? What did he do for the Bundys? He allowed his Justice Department to take an appeal when even an Obama judge threw the indictment out. The guy is a total disgrace. He's worse than a disgrace. He's corrupt. And so are the people in and around him at the Justice Department, my alma mater, my once proud alma mater. And that is why I wrote my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, because we need to wage a peaceful and legal revolution. Our founding fathers, as I said yesterday, when the bonds of government are broken, it behooves the people, with the grace of God, to dissolve those bonds and to form a new government by and for the people with God's grace. And that's what we're going to have to do, because all these criminals in Washington, leave them to commit crimes against themselves. And let's form our own government. Maybe we'll even nominate President Trump, and we'll do it peacefully and legally. I'm going to hold a meeting, whatever you want to call it, a Third Continental Congress in Philadelphia early next year. And we're going to decide where this country goes. We're going to have experts from all fields and activists and people who actually want to do something, not sell BS to the American people, that somehow something's going to save this country short of a peaceful and legal revolution. It won't. It won't. I've lived it now for 42 years. The answer is no longer at the ballot box. The answer is no longer in the courts. The answer is no longer in the legislature, which is run by a bunch of clowns, court jesters, and criminals stuffing money into their pockets. Can you imagine that if the Democrats take control of the Senate, Chuck Schumer is going to be the majority leader, along with Nancy Pelosi, that wicked witch, and Schumer, that wicked warlock? These people are dishonest to the core. They reek dishonesty. They're disgusting. And then you have the Republican establishment that sits there and watches all this happen. It's unbelievable. But, you know, the president's not without blame either, because he knew this was going to happen, and he got bad advice most likely, and he followed it. He let it happen. Maria Bartiromo said on Fox News last Sunday to Rudy Giuliani, "Why were you caught flat-footed?" Now it's a fait accompli. World leaders, except for a few. Ironically, Putin is the only one who's standing behind the president and says, "I'm not going to congratulate Biden until there's a final result and certification." But they're all throwing in the towel, including Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel. Despicable, two-faced, slimy individual, frankly, who sold the president out after he did so much for Israel. And then news comes today from my Israeli colleagues, the law firm that brought a lawsuit, much like I did in Dallas, Texas, to fight against the Chinese, to contain the damage from the Chicoms. Not the Chinese people, they're good people, but the communists who unleashed a bioweapon to destroy the United States, to ultimately defeat President Trump, and to harm the rest of the world. And Israel's been particularly hard hit, particularly since it's such a small country. So the lawsuit is filed. The government of China, People's Republic of China, is served with the complaint. They had 90 days to respond. Much like in our case in Dallas, they don't respond at all because they have no respect for the U.S. legal system or the Israeli legal system or any legal system. They're communists. They're killers. They don't care about legal systems. What happens then? The Attorney General of Israel comes in and says the case should be dismissed because it's a matter of public interest. Well, whose public interest? The communist Chinese? He says, oh, they have immunity. They have no immunity because it's a bioweapon. It's a terrorist weapon. There's no immunity for that. And China signed treaties that they weren't going to produce them. We have 3 experts that will testify it's a bioweapon. So that's Israel, okay? The United States is the same. Nothing's happening. Massive damage. Our restaurants, our facilities, everything else, gyms are getting closed down again. It's worse than before, so they claim. And then we have news of a vaccine on the horizon. Well, you know what? Why did Pfizer, which is a company, a German-owned company, German immigrants that came to this country, why is it that they held back on that news until after the election? They're obviously in bed with Biden and Kamala Harris. They want the president gone. They could have announced that sooner. And frankly, I don't even believe they have a vaccine. I think the American people and the rest of the world are probably being scammed. But in any event, this is the world we live in today, okay? It's corrupt to the core. You can't believe a word major establishment interests tell you, whether it's the government, whether it's corporations, whether it's labor unions, whether it's whatever. And that's why we, the American people, must rise up. We must do it for ourselves. The Israeli people must do the same. I've told my colleagues, go out on the airwaves and tell them how their own government is working against their interests with the Chi-Coms. Okay? The public interest are the communists in China, not the people of Israel who are sick and dying. Same in the United States. The people have had it worldwide. They've had it. And that's why we must do whatever we can. It takes another revolution. Forget the scandal industry. Forget hammers. Forget all this other crap that's out there. Okay? And rise up and read my book. It's a roadmap on how to do it. You can get it at Amazon.com. And join Freedom Watch's Justice League. We don't just get documents. We actually bring hard-hitting cases, citizens' grand juries, and other things to try to correct what's going on and to wage a peaceful and legal revolution. And I'm welcoming your suggestions to this as well. Because if we don't wage a peaceful and legal revolution, there's going to be others out there in society, not me, not you, who are going to use violent means as predicted by Thomas Jefferson. He said that would happen ultimately. So God bless you. God bless your family. God save your family. And thank you for listening to me. And take this to heart. Don't listen to the garbage that's out there on Fox News. Fox News, who has abandoned the president, who cut the legs out from under him. Turn it off. It's as evil as everything else out there that's trying to destroy this country. And get to work. Get to work. Actually do something like our founding fathers. I'll be back tomorrow with another special edition of our podcast. Until then, with God's grace, we will prevail. Thank you for listening to me.
O'Reilly. This is Derek's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
After the 3rd time jump-starting my car, I finally realized my battery was dying. So I stopped by O'Reilly to have it checked. They tested it right there in the parking lot. It was bad, real bad. But they helped me find the right battery for my car and even installed it for free. Now my car starts like new.